Pay me, pay me, pay me my silver now. Pay me or go to jail. Pay me my silver now.
Hey, Road to Ruta followers. It's Josh Lake here today with Bix Weir, as always. And we're going to be going over some Silver 101 for all of you new stackers out there. But before we get into that, Bix, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm impressed with your background, all those silver bars stacked.
Right,
Although I
right.
wouldn't buy silver bars. That's the thing. Good thing to talk about.
Yes, that's definitely one of the questions that I want to go over in this short discussion about silver. So this is really for the people who are just coming into silver, who are still new to the stacking game and probably have some of the more basic questions about it. And so we're going to cover those today. First of all, Bix, what's up with this silver stuff? Why even buy it? What's the catch?
Well, silver's an interesting commodity. It is a commodity. It is mined out of the earth, out of the ground, takes blood, sweat, and tears to get it out of the ground. The big thing about silver is the price suppression of silver. There's a few banks and governments around the world that refuse to allow silver to rise in price because it is an indicator that they're losing control of the fiat monetary system. Now, you don't have to worry about this big, understanding the full concept of how much fiat money versus how much gold and silver there is, because we've done that for you. We've done all the homework. If you're brand new, you want to think about, okay, my checking account, my savings account, my retirement funds, they're in control. They are being controlled by the same people that are rigging the silver market. So if these people go down, I might lose the fiat money that I have in the bank. Yes, there's FDIC insurance, but the FDIC bank account is practically, it can only cover about 1% of all that they guarantee. So you have to go to Congress, and Congress can't do anything. So the whole concept behind gold and silver as monetary metals is that they are standalone assets. And if you have it in your hands, there's no third party attached to it. Now, the difference between gold and silver is much, much more important in that silver is both used as a monetary metal and an industrial metal. 65%, I think right now, of all silver that's mined goes into the industrial side and never comes onto the monetary side. So there are so many things about that and reasons for that. All you got to remember is silver is a dual purpose type of commodity. It's a industrial commodity used in cell phones, flat screen TVs, electric cars. All that stuff is growing and consuming more and more silver. And it is a monetary metal. And as countries like the United States of America debase their currency, meaning print more and more, they're going to devalue that currency in relation to everything else. And if you look at all other commodities, they're double or triple their original all-time highs. Everything's going through the roof, except silver is still 50% of its all-time high because it's being held back. That is a great reason to buy as much physical silver as you can get your hands on.
Right. And physical silver is a key part of this whole thing, right? A lot of people who want to still invest into precious metals still look to do so in the paper versions, correct? And from our perspective, that's definitely the wrong move, right?
It is a wrong move if the system falls apart. I mean, the whole reason to own precious metals is if the system's falling apart. So it's kind of, you've made half the jump. If you buy an ETF, you've made half the jump understanding that these assets are undervalued. The other half of the jump is to think, oh my God, this ETF could shut down at any moment, could be nationalized or confiscated, or even we could see the stoppage of trading on the COMEX, the LBMA, or the New York Stock Exchange. It has happened before, it will happen again. And the question is going to be when the music stops, who's holding the actual asset? And that's why a certificate for a mining company share or a share of an ETF doesn't mean all that much in a world where there's financial chaos. You want metal in your hands, in your own possession, so that you get to decide what you're going to do with it. Absolutely.
Holding your own assets in your own possession is one of the principal, things we teach here at the Road to Ruta. And it's very important to do that, to hold it in your own possession, which when it comes to silver, holding it, does that mean holding it in your own house? Does that mean holding it in multiple places? Does that mean getting a big safe somewhere and holding it? What does that mean exactly?
Well, it means where you are the only one who has access to it, or you or your family. if you know a place you want to hide it, off away from yourself, so you don't want to get robbed, through a family member, through a good friend, things like that, where you have control of who's in charge of your assets. So if the banks shut down and the regulators start confiscating stuff, and the government you don't trust, which you don't, you are the only one, and maybe a family member or a close friend knows where you hide your silver, but make sure that it's only you, that you always have access to it. You can get to it if you need it, things like that.
Right. And one of the things that I've learned in this whole silver stacking game is that it's heavy. The actual metal itself is very dense, and transporting it isn't necessarily the easiest thing, especially in bulk. So yeah, I would say that definitely having it in one place, or multiple places where it's not going to go anywhere, is going to be a good bet for you. So yeah, so when it comes to actually buying the silver, I know that there's a lot of different places you can go. You can go online, you can go to coin shops around your town, but a lot of people don't even know that there are silver dealers around in their local cities. So what would you suggest for people if they're just looking to buy some silver right now? Where would they go and purchase it?
Always start local, and you just go on the internet and search for silver dealers in your area, gold dealers in your area, pawn shops deal in gold and silver usually. Jewelry stores will deal in gold and silver, physical round coins and things like that. Everybody can find a silver shop in your area. Usually it's not a long drive even to get there. And you want to find a couple of them, because you want to build a relationship with these people. Because remember, when you buy silver, at some point you're going to want to sell it for whatever you want. Say you want to buy a house or a car or get some fiat money to pay bills, things like that. You want to build a relationship with these local people, so that when you walk in, you don't have to barter with them every time. Hey, I need an extra 3 cents. You're ripping me off. If there's two people, you can play off each other. You can say, hey, I got Joe and I got Sue, and they're both silver dealers in my town. They know each other. I'm going to figure out who I like the most, who's going to give me the best deal. And that's what you walk in and say, hey, I know there's you and there's Sue down the street. I want to build a relationship with someone. I don't feel like coming in haggling. You give me the best price every time I come in, and then we'll work together exclusively. That works really well. And if you don't have someone in your local area, or you don't feel comfortable that they're not trying to rip you off, you can use our broker, Andy Schectman at Miles Franklin, and you get in touch with him via email, Andy, A-N-D-Y, at milesfranklin.com. It's on our affiliates page at the Road to Ruta. And Andy has sworn in blood that he will take care of all Road to Ruta members and give us the best price he can possibly get. It does have to be shipped to you. I always start with, hey, what have you got in inventory? Because I trust Andy, but I don't trust that the system's going to stay together. If I want to buy Silver Eagles, he says they're not coming in for 2 weeks. I don't want to wait that long. So I buy what he has in inventory. He ships it, usually takes 2 or 3 days to ship it to you after you wire them the money. And really upstanding guy, great guy. And he's done a lot of work for the Road to Ruta members, and he continues to do a lot of work. So just send him an email and say, hey, let's start with your local. But if you're not comfortable with your local guys, send Andy an email and he'll take care of you.
Yeah, Andy is awesome. When I started stacking silver, and even to this day, I've utilized him, and I've called him directly on the phone, and we've talked for plenty of time. And I was just doing small, like $1,000 transactions, something like very small in the actual world of silver investing. And he was so considerate, so helped me walk through the whole process, and definitely recommend him for online purchases if that's what you want to do. I do want to go back to when we were talking about a little bit with your local silver dealers and kind of bartering back and forth. That was an interesting concept for me when I started stacking, because I always thought, silver price is up there. You can see it online. That's what the price is, right? But then you learn about premiums. You learn that there's not always going to be the same premium depending on where you're buying from, or even what type of silver you're buying, what actual bullion you're getting. And so do you want to mention anything about something to be aware of for premiums when you're starting to purchase silver?
Sure. I mean, everybody's trying to make a buck, has to make a living. So a lot of people go into a silver shop and have an ounce of silver and say, hey, the price I saw on the news was $24 and you'll only give me $23 $3 or $22. What's the deal? Why aren't you paying? They have, the way they make a living is marking it up and buying it cheap. So there's usually about, I don't know, 5 to 10% spread either side, depending on how much you're buying and depending on their inventory. Because a lot of the guys, if they're sitting on inventory for a while and it's not moving, they'll give you a better deal on what they got in inventory, things like that. So you will pay, it is a brokerage fee really on both sides, either if you're selling it to them or you're buying it from them. It's a good reason to have a few different dealers. Say, hey, John can get me silver at $27 and you're saying it's 28. I'm just going to go there. And then the guy will say, I'll give it for, $26.99 and things like that. Right, a lot of people don't like bartering like that. In that situation, I just call Andy, and Andy has promised to get us the best prices he can get, but he will make money off every transaction he does. That's what he does for a living. And so, yeah, definitely there is and then when things are tight and there's not much retail silver out there, retail meaning in the form of bars that Joe Schmo gets to buy, bars and coins, at that time, premiums go up and up because they're harder and harder to get. Premium meaning the difference between the spot price and what the retail or the wholesale brokers are selling for, and the retail brokers and the storefront guys and even Andy. If things are tight, they're not going to get rid of it because they won't have inventory to restock. So they're going to have to pay more and more. It's a unique supply and demand type of world that silver lives in, and it's not unique. It's the way the world should be. We just haven't lived in that world for a long time because of all the fake prices.
That's totally true. I have run in the last year, I'd say, whenever I go into the silver shop, the inventory it ranges quite a bit. Sometimes they'll have a decent amount to choose from. Sometimes they'll only have, here's the scrap that we have to sell, but that's it. So it really does, it fluctuates with the market. And another thing I noticed too is that oftentimes they only have specific kinds of bullion. Like sometimes they'll have the larger bars, sometimes they'll just have the rounds. I know that here on the road to Ruta, we like to get the smaller denominations of silver, but for the people who are just learning and they see all these giant silver bars behind me, what would be the reason to buy smaller denominations as opposed to these gigantic large ones behind me?
Well, the biggest reason is that the bigger the bar, the easier it is to make counterfeit bars. Molybdenum has the same density almost as silver. So a lot of silver or lead or molybdenum are the big ones. The molybdenum are even closer. They call them molly bars. I think I named that term. But it could be filled with lead. You don't want big bars because you don't know really what's in them. You can weigh them all you want. The scratch test, there's a scratch test they do with acid and it turns a different color. That's just the surface, really. If you have a bar, you have to x-ray it or drill into it. Just stay with the littler things. 1 ounce coins is what I always recommend. 1 ounce coins. 10 ounce bars are okay, but again, you can fake those. And silver, there's not as many smaller fakes because it's not worth the money. It's not worth the money to coat a 10 ounce bar of silver, but it's done. And you get the smaller denominations of the coins are your best bet. And then you can test them in various ways. There's the ping test. The ping test is you take a silver dollar, a regular silver dollar is made with zinc, I think, from the US government, and a real silver dollar, and you drop them on a counter and they have a different sound. Silver has a very distinct sound. Same with the pre-1965 coinage, which is 90% silver. The US used to have silver as money. You could drop it and compare a quarter to a quarter. One's silver, one's not, and there's a very distinct difference of the sound. And the silver quarter sounds really sharp, ping sound. That's how it sounds like, ping.
That's right. And even, as I've journeyed into the stacking space, one thing I like to do, it's not the most time efficient thing, but something I like to do is when I go and I find like a giant jar full of old change, something I'll do is I'll look through all the dimes, I'll look through all the quarters, and the pre-65 ones you can tell are silver because yes, the ping test, and also when you look at the side, it's not copper or it doesn't have the brown strip in it. The older ones are fully silver. It's hard to find those ones just out in the wild nowadays, but it is, if you have a bunch of old coins lying around, you might want to take a look at those because some of them might be made of 90% silver, which we call junk silver here. And that's also another, I have a decent amount of junk silver, and I like to accumulate that as well because, again, it's made by the US Mint. And I think that's another question that I want to address is, should we buy only American silver if we're in America, or does it matter if we buy, the Canadian stuff or the Mexican stuff or Australian stuff? Does any of that matter?
It can matter in certain situations. I tend to buy US Mint type stuff because the laws about counterfeiting US Mint coinage versus bars and rounds are different. I mean, that's counterfeiting laws, which are much more hold a higher penalty than just fraud. If you're making fake bars and you're making fake US versus making fake US coinage, you make fake US coinage, you not only have the fraud laws, but you've got the Secret Service who monitors the currency, and they're going to say you're counterfeiting as well. So you're going to end up in jail for a very long time if you're trying to do that.
Right.
So yeah, most of the fake stuff comes out in the bars and random coinage. And you can also buy a little scale and see if it's an ounce of silver. And different types of silver have different quantities of, like silver coinage. The pre-65 stuff, what the industry calls junk silver, which I always hated that name because it's I would say it's the best silver to own. But back in the day, you used to be able to buy it for less than the content of the silver in the coin, which was crazy. And I was buying a lot back then. David Morgan came out and said, "I bet you I can get you silver below spot," and that's what it was. It was buying pre-65 coinage, but that now the premiums on pre-65 coinage are the highest premiums in the industry, up there near silver eagles, which are always high.
Right.
So yeah, it's important what kind of silver you get. If you're just starting out, if you can find pre-65 coinage, that's great. If you can find silver eagles, that's great. If you can find 1 ounce rounds, that's great. You can find I'm sure you can find any of those. And as far as where you live, people recognize a U.S. silver eagle more than they'll recognize a Australian kangaroo or a Canadian maple leaf. But if you live in Australia, they'll recognize the Australian kangaroo.
Right.
So, and the premiums aren't that different.
Right. And now in America, now they have the new silver eagle, which has a completely different stamp. This was the first year they're making this version of it after decades of the same the same look. So that's interesting to me.
Yeah, why did they do that, Josh? To this day, I got some of the new 2001. First of all, they split the year in half. They issued these in the middle of the year for some unknown reason, and all they did, they changed what the eagle was doing on the back of the coin, and they put a little notch on the side of the coin. Nobody knows why, and nobody really cares. Although it might be significant of the type of silver in the actual coin, but that gets into the deeper molecular differences of silver, which, if that is cool, I don't know which one would be better. The pre-2021 non-change silver eagles or the post. I just have no idea.
Thank you for that, Bix. I really appreciate it. I'm sure everyone listening who, even if you are someone who's been stacking silver for a long time, or if you're just coming into this space, the information we're talking about, I think, is still pertinent, it's still relative, and you could still learn something. So thank you for all of that, Bix. The last question I have for you is, when do I buy silver? Is there a good time to buy it?
Well, it's like anything else. You want to buy low and sell high. The problem with silver is it's been low for so long. I would argue that silver has been artificially suppressed for over 170 years. Back before the Opium Wars. The Opium Wars were fought in China all about silver. So yeah, I think the price suppression of silver has been a long ongoing suppression, sometimes endorsed by the government, sometimes not, sometimes just a banking type of operation, sometimes not. Silver is the bank killer. There's so much gold out there. The value of gold doesn't really matter to the bankers. They know that there's 10 or 20 times the amount of gold that the official numbers say. In silver, it's the opposite. There's so little silver left that the bankers have to keep that price down. Because as we know, with investing in these days, if the price goes up, people buy. It's the opposite of what you should do. But that's exactly why they're holding the price down, because if the price were to run to $50, $100, $200, $1,000 an ounce, then everybody would be buying and taking up all the physical silver, and the banks would be destroyed because of their short position on the COMEX where the price is determined. So yes, silver is the number one bank killer of all the assets, especially the monetary assets.
Yes. So if you're listening to this and you are just curious or feeling the pull to buy some silver, I would say buy it sooner than later, because we don't know when this price suppression is going to end. We don't know when this whole system is going to transition. And at that point, you know, you're going to want to have some silver in your hands. So, you know, based on that, thank you so much for having me, Bix, and for talking about silver, because this is a very important topic for people here on the road to Ruta and for people who are just learning about the financial system. So thank you so much. Is there anything you want to end with?
Hey, just keep stacking. That's what, when you buy silver, you get a roll of coins, you stack them one on top of the other. And if you're as rich as Josh, as you can see from all his silver bars back there, you can stack bars. So that's when silver lovers talk about stacking, that's what they're talking about. Truthfully, at this point, with this low price, it doesn't matter what you buy at. Just get it in your own possession, because they're running out, and sooner or later the price suppression game will end, and you're looking at 170 years of price suppression. It does not end quietly. It does not end peacefully. It will end in a bang, with silver go up in the thousands of dollars.
Right. Thousands of dollars. That would be quite the return, if you ask me. So anyway, thank you, Bix. I really appreciate this conversation. I'm sure everyone else out there does as well. And we'll wrap it up now, and we'll see you on the next one, guys. Stay tuned for the next time we talk about silver. And until then, happy stacking.